Okay, so Mercedes, you had a question for us today.
Yes, I did. I was thinking something that would be very like the season that I'm in my life, or that I've been in my life for the last 7 years, with our son and just his healing journey. But I've also had the experience and the opportunity, well, not just the experience of my journey, but also walking alongside other ladies and other families who have been going through really, really difficult seasons in their life. And so my question is, how have you ladies found peace and maintained hope during trying seasons?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Lots of tears.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tears.
Yeah.
for me, I think it's because I'm actually I'm in that season currently, and so for me, it's been a lot of tears, but surrounding myself with other women who can come alongside me and encourage me and give really good advice. I mean, I know we're in this circle right now and you're kind of looking at us, but then I think it's a beautiful demonstration to show that that we continue to surround ourselves, no matter what stage of life that we're in, with someone else that we can lock arms with. I mean, the current season I'm in right now, as an example, is I'm constantly, while I can't physically, the person I have in mind, I can't physically be with them because of where we live and the distance. But when I tell you I'm on the phone with this person constantly, and just she helps me brings clarity with different things that I'm personally going through. Even when you're talking about, even with children, it can be difficult sometimes because we've never done this before. You know what I mean? And so it's there's not a book on parenting, especially different stages. And I have 3 beautiful children, and they're all 3 very different, and they approach things differently. And so it's just been really encouraging to have someone that you can lock arms with during those times.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. To find encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
to find fun for you too. I think there has to be a balance there, that we can't just look into this dark tunnel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've learned to say is life is long, and this is not the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
That this is the beginning, and I'm going to have faith because it's a long life, and they're going to be given opportunity to come back and do the right things if that is the case. But I just encourage you to find the people in your life that will encourage, that will pick up the phone when you're like, I'm just really having a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
And they really listen empathetically.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to help you get to the next moment.
Right.
That's what we need sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be in a lot of fear. I know when I was going through that stage, fear dominated my thoughts.
Right.
And it just doesn't have to be that way. Where we live in fear and dread, we have to kind of have some normal in the life. And if you can find that balance, it will help you stay healthier in the process.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I would echo community, but since I feel like they covered that well, I'll skip to, some other things. I think finding things that bring you peace is really important. And so just because, what I do brings me peace doesn't mean that it'll necessarily be the thing for you. So like we've been in a pretty hard season, I would say the hardest season of our life in the last year. And when I started that season, I had a friend who, like, in her hard season, she was like, I just worship all day long. I have worship music on all day long. I have it in the background. And I tried that and I was like, I'm going to flip out right now. Like, this is not bringing me any kind of peace. This is actually, it's making me hear the words to this that I've never really listened to before from this place. And it's actually making me angry, But I discovered classical music in a new way. And so I have a little section in my closet. I have a closet that goes kind of like this. And so I've got a prayer area or a solitude area. I don't just go in there and pray. Go in there just to be alone. I need that little space where no one else is at, that is just solitude, you know? I'll go in there and play classical music and I'll weep. I'll just weep at the reverence of it, at the beauty of it, at the peace, at what were they feeling when they put this music together? Like, what was their heart crying? You know, I don't even need the words, or maybe it starts eliciting some words from me where I can just like pour out my heart. You know, I never have had that before, and I homeschooled, so I ended up teaching my kids about classical music, and I felt nothing when I did it before. You know what I'm saying? It was just like school, you know? And instead I'm like, so I actually created a playlist for us while we're in the season, and it does have some worship songs on there, but it has this classical music piece. Do you know more people have reached out about that one classical music piece than anything else, where they're like, whoa. And I'm like, I know. It's like the power of music, you know?
Right.
And then you know, whether you read the Bible or you don't read the Bible, we all read stuff, right? That either someone has walked through their journey with or whatever. I'm drawn to things where people are being real.
Right.
And so kind of a buzzword right now is lament, but it's an age-old thing. When we can really authentically say what we're feeling, not put any, I need to feel good about this, or I need to put a spin on it so everybody knows I'm okay.
Right.
You know, sometimes people can just want you to be okay.
Right.
And so instead of them letting you be where you're at, they're like, well, Mercedes, you know, God's got you. And you're like, I'm not questioning if God's got me.
Right.
That's not my issue. My issue is I'm trying to walk through this thing with my kid, and I don't know which direction we're supposed to go. And I'm feeling hopeless in this moment, you know? And so for me, the more authentic I could be, the more I could speak truth, the real truth, the ugly truth, the stuff that was in there.
Right.
The more I could like see it, it couldn't be used against me. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so I could be like, okay, I'm pissed right now. I'm really mad. This is not okay. This is not fair. This should not even be happening to me statistically. I wasn't feeling sorry for myself, but we could do that in like, especially in religious circles. Yeah. We could be like, you just need to put your big girl panties on.
Right.
And, you know, don't feel sorry for yourself. And you're like, okay, but this is legitimately what's happening in me. And if I can name it, I can break agreement with it. You know, I can come out of that place real, not just telling myself, oh, you don't feel that way. I could say, okay, I'm angry.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to come out of agreement with that. You know, what do you say? What do I need to have, hear, think, feel? Like, what needs to help me get to the next place, you know?
I think showing something that I'm trying to practice even now is showing myself grace, especially in the parenting realm, because a lot of times we get these expectations that we think, oh, life is going to look like this, and my children are going to look like this in this season, and all of these different things. And so, and then the parent guilt is that's a very real thing. And so if our children maybe choose a different path than what we wanted for them or expected for them, or if they're going through something, or they make choices that are maybe a choice that we wouldn't have made, you know, it's learning to show ourselves grace, because in that moment, a lot of times personally, I can be like, well, maybe if I would have done this different as a parent, then my child wouldn't have gone down this path, or if I would have taught this or done this or that. And really, in reality, that gets us nowhere. You know what I mean? And so it's in those moments, showing ourselves grace as a parent is really huge, that we're not going to always get it right. And just because our children, you know, they have free will, and so they might choose a path that we don't necessarily agree with, but that doesn't mean that we're this bad parent or we didn't do something perfectly. You know, it's taking the pressure off and just learning to relax and just be like, you know what? I mean, I'm going back in my mind when I was a young person and trying to figure this thing called life out. I didn't always choose paths that my parents agreed with either. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, it's allowing your kids to be their own person and being okay with that, and knowing that you as a parent, just because, well, it's owning that, yeah, maybe as a parent, I didn't do everything okay, but that, again, showing yourself grace, it's okay. Right. Yeah. And I'm kind of in the middle of that right now. It's just like, you know, you have all these questions and you're like, well, maybe I could have done something a little bit different. That is the truth. I could have done things differently. But it doesn't mean that that's ultimately why they chose to go a certain path. Like, you know what I mean? So show yourself grace in that realm, especially when it comes to a healing journey of one of your children. As moms, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we want to own everything. And, you know, it's just like, well, if I would have done this different, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say that, like, as far as like everything that you ladies have shared resonates so well with me. I know that in 2017, when we began this journey, that I remember just praying and telling God, like, God, I know that I'm going to go through seasons where I'm not going to have fight in me, or I'm not going to want to fight. Like, I'm going to be so depleted. So would you surround me with the people who are going to raise my arms up, who are going to come and be that safe place, right? Or the people who are going to fight for us when we need a rest? And so I've definitely seen how that has come together so beautifully, so perfectly. And I will say that as I've had the honor and privilege to walk with many people in their time of, in their trying times, in these trying seasons. Even yet, while we're still in our season, there's just been this beauty of being authentic and being organic with each other. Like, it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, you know? And I loved what you said, sister, regarding, you know, sometimes we can be in those environments where people are just like, well, you know, God's got this, which that's the truth. That's the truth, absolute truth. But in that moment, I feel like, okay, what's surfaced, you know, what has come to the surface, and how can we walk together in this? And so I feel like that's so awesome. And I mean, I personally appreciate that so much. I know that these difficult seasons, I believe you said this once, Charity, regarding like, this is the first time we're living this life, something in those lines, right? And so, probably the things that worked for us today will not work tomorrow. Right. They were valid for the day of today, you know? And so I feel like I have been, the Lord has shown me how to be aware of that. And also, as I walk with others, maybe there was a season that I needed just to be that friend to hear and not say a word. Yes. And then there's an opportunity to just lay a gentle word at a person's lap, you know? And so, and I'm also learning what that looks like for us in our season, you know, which for me, of course, it's felt like 7 years is long. You know, I know for many people that have walked these hard seasons over 7 years, they probably look at our situation and not assume that, but it's okay.
Yeah. I think too, Dee, you said something that I wanted to circle back to, because I feel like there's so much grace that needs to be had. Yeah. And so that's been a lesson for me in this season. Like, I've had this crazy thought. Okay, it's because my brain is just looking for peace and comfort or whatever, you know, have grace, right? But I also think this is like I'm cautious in the way that I say this, because as women, we can carry a lot of guilt. Yep. But I also think what's been incredibly freeing for me. So one time when my oldest son was 3, our toddler son drowned in a drowning accident, and our older son regressed in potty training. And so all of a sudden, I mean, all the numbers he regressed in. Right. And I was pregnant, not using that as an excuse, but I was grieving. I was hormonal. And we woke up that day. Y'all probably heard me share this story, but it's because it's been so freeing for me. But we woke up that day and I was like, look at me. Don't you potty in your pants today. Like, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong if this happens, you know. And what do you think happened? Like 5 minutes later, he used the bathroom in his pants, because, I mean, I set the dynamic up for that, you know. I grab him up. I'm like, oh, I can't believe you did this, you know, and I'm definitely showing anger. You know, I take him in the bathroom, I turn the water on. And we have one of those nozzles that goes like this, and the water's cold, you know, and I'm like spraying the poop off of him. And he's like, Mommy, it's cold. And I'm like, good, I'm glad it's cold. And all of a sudden, conviction comes in that moment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm hurting him. Like, not physically. The cold water wasn't physically hurting him, but I am sinning against him.
Right.
Like, and I mean to. I'm mad at him and I want him to pay. And oh my gosh, that's incredibly wrong. And I'm really sad. And so I immediately put the water down and I was like, baby, I'm so sorry. Mommy is so sorry. Please forgive me. You know, I'm crying. He's crying, you know, all of that. Fast forward, he does not remember that. But like every few years, I would be like, I'm so sorry I did that to you, you know, and he'd be like, okay, Mom, don't bring that up again because I don't care, you know, or whatever. But I was convinced, you know, that it like broke trust. Here's my point. I had to take that to the Lord and be like, okay, I can't live in guilt, but also I just need to acknowledge that I did this thing in my parenting journey that was hurtful, and I meant to, and I wanted to in the moment. And lay that down. And so I think it's the both and. It's like, give us grace when we need it, when we're trying to go back to your point, fear. We're trying to not operate in fear and not make decisions out of that and have grace for ourselves. Like fear looks like or can look like, did I do this right? Did I do that? What if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? You know? So we need to have grace, but also what if we would have done that? Like what if we made a choice out of a sinful place? There's so much grace in that. And just being able to say, man, I did it and I'm sorry, you know? And I know the situation that you're walking through is different because it's a medical situation in that. But I think even in those moments, allowing yourself to say, yeah, I was really pissed that this is my situation right now, you know? And I did feel that way. And I'm sorry I felt that way, you know, or whatever. There's just, it's so freeing.
And I think
know?
that goes to, it kind of speaks what you're talking about to identity. In that moment, you forgot who you were. Because at the end of the day, maybe that's, we're mad and we react to to the poop. You know what I mean? You're reacting like,
literal poop.
Literally.
And, and figuratively.
Right. Figuratively. Like in all the ways. It was just a bunch of poop. But in that moment, sometimes when we make these decisions and these choices, it's because in that moment we forget who we truly are, you know, and so we react and we act from a place that we forget our identity. And so remembering, again, we can show ourselves grace in those moments that, I did make this decision. I did make this choice, but it's like, I forgive myself. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do is saying, you know what? I did screw up right here. I did make this decision in life, parenting, whatever, you know what I mean? And we want to disqualify ourselves because we made the mistake. But it's like, you know what? I just forgot who I was in that moment. That's not really who I am. And surrounding ourselves with people that in the moment, when we forget who we are, they can remind us like, you know what? When you did this the other day, you know what I mean? I understand why you made that decision because of maybe where you were in your life and in your healing journey. But come here, sister. Come here, brother. Come here, friend. You know what I mean? That's not who you are. Let me remind you who you are. Who you are is, and then you can just remind them who they are. You know what I mean? It's just like, so I think identity has a big piece of that when we're making choices that we're just like, remembering who we are.
That's really, really good. I feel like even in that, just remembering who we are and remember who they are. Right. It's so important to be able to see with like unclouded, clear vision, even in that place of hurt. Right. And even in that place of maybe if we have stepped in fear, you know, how can I choose to see myself and this person or this situation with not a distorted lens. That's good.
That's really good.
We need help with that a lot. We have to ask for help with that a lot, you know, because what we're seeing in the flesh feels very much real.
Absolutely.
You know, feels very much like I can see who this person is. They're proving it to me right now, but really saying, okay, would you show me this person through the eyes of their creator, through the person through the lens of who they were meant to be,
Yeah.
you know, and that changes the game.
Right.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. One last part on that too is I feel like this is a drumbeat for me with every conversation, but the more healed up we get, the more peace flows. And so it's just a never ending thing. I think I'm going to probably say this in every conversation that I have is that we don't arrive. We don't just go and get some stuff taken care of once or twice. Yeah. It is an ongoing thing because we are complex people and there are layers to things. So when I think about what I did to my son in the shower that day and the level of anger, I'm not saying that I don't get angry, but I'm saying I don't even have that in me anymore.
Right.
Because of the work, you know? And so that's not going to come out. So it's not even like I need to remember or whatever, like that part has been healed up, you know? And when I first got married, I tried to kick my husband out every time he did something wrong. Literally, he's like, I just wouldn't leave at one point, you know? I was just like, you're going to have to physically kick me out. But I had no like skills for how to do things. And I'm a pretty passionate person, in case y'all can't figure that out, both in the positive and in the negative, you know? So I'd be like, I love you. I love you. Oh my God, get out right now, you know? And it took me years of working through that stuff to come to a place where when we had conflict, and so basically, even though your conflict isn't like a fight, there's conflict in our hearts in a moment where we don't have peace, right? Like I have conflict over this situation.
Right.
I had to learn, like not just how to be healed, but I needed to learn tools.
Yes.
And so I'm always a proponent. I tell my kids all the time, you got to have workarounds, man. Like if this is the way you're going to feel or respond to something and then in the natural in the moment, and you don't want to do that, what are you going to do? How are you going to equip yourself, you know, to respond differently? Yeah. Got to have a workaround.
Yes.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Absolutely. I'm big on lamenting. You know, it's perfectly fine to go to God. I am scared. I am angry. This makes me angry. This is why it makes me angry. I tried so hard. Look at what's happening. You know, it's perfectly fine to go to God and just be really real with, I don't know what to do. What is the next step? Hold my heart. So hopefully we can come from a place of all the anger and the fear and the rumbling to God, hold my heart. I think that's what David did a lot of times. You know, so I encourage you to do that.
Absolutely.
Be honest. Be honest. This hurts because I'm sure you're holding up a front, you know, for your family in a lot of areas, and you don't have to do that all the time. And we can't. We just can't.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's okay to fall apart sometimes.
It is okay to fall apart.
Yeah.
He's got great clue.
Yes. He does have great clue.
It's mercy, right? And he's just going to glue us back together.
That's so good. And I agree. Now, believe me that I have definitely fallen apart many, many times. And some of this, I feel like even in falling apart, there's some accountability.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we stay in a season too long.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like whenever there was a season in my life where I just completely fell apart. And I just remember that was a perfect opportunity for the enemy to come. And there was this big cloud of guilt, this big cloud of shame. And all of a sudden I'm suicidal, you know, and in that moment, I knew what I was feeling, even in my place of distress and crying out to the Lord. Like that was, and I'm saying this because just that awareness that I wish I had before, like when we are in that place of vulnerability, it's great to have somebody covering us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. And so I just remember that whenever I was in that place, where I did completely fall apart, like there was that opportunity because I was so vulnerable in that moment that all of a sudden I was a magnet to all these things that weren't edifying, that weren't healing. Right. And so then I just remember my husband coming in one day, from work, and I was like, listen, I I'm feeling this way. And I just, I feel like committing suicide.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember telling him, like, I don't have the fight in me.
Mhm.
And to be honest with you, I don't want to fight against it. It feels right.
Mhm.
And so just even in these seasons, as I've gone in and out of, valleys and,
Yeah.
peaks and valleys, and just understanding, like, I should have somebody walking with me, whether that is my husband. And I loved how you mentioned just giving our hearts to God, like, God, this is so heavy. I don't know what to do with this. And you're trustworthy, and I want to give my heart to you. And then also having somebody like tangibly,
Yes.
that can walk with us,
Uh-huh.
because things can get super messy.
Yeah.
And the healing journey, Yeah. So I really love that. I really love that. And I just, community, again, it goes back to community.
For sure. Yeah. Great conversation, ladies.
Yes.
Thank
so good.
you.
Thank you, ladies. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for your
Thank you for
insight.
sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay.